So thanks for having me this morning. I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour because this is a speech that I generally do in 1 hour and 15 minutes. So it's going to be a little fast, but hopefully it'll stir you to go act and find at least one thing that you've never heard about before and are dying to find out about more. So here we go. How many startups are there happening around the world every year? How many do you think?
150 million.
100? Ooh. Well, the man's good. He's also optimistic. Well, so the truth is that there are roughly 300 million startups in the works, 100 million of which are launched every year. So if you are having difficulty keeping up with what's going on, I don't blame you. This is what we have to try and do, is try to make sense of all this craziness out there. And I use the work from NetExplo, which is an observatory out of Paris that's been in existence for 10 years. And I have a team of 200 people that helps us to understand what's happening in this new tech around the world. We have about 20 universities that help us, and they use their students as part of our observatory, as well as a bunch of other technologists and futurologists and all these other wonderful chaps helping us understand what's going on. So this year we identified 2,175 initiatives that we thought were really interesting. You can see that we are very attentive because we're partnered with UNESCO to also look around the world. So we have a third coming from Europe, a third from North America, and a third from the rest of the world. So not everything happens in Silicon Valley or Shoreditch. This is the other thing that's really interesting. When you look at those 2,175 interesting initiatives, who's doing them? And the real problem is this, is that 6% of the exciting innovations are coming from big business. And year over year, this number is between 4 and 6%. So everything is happening in these startups, huge amount of things happening in universities. So the companies that are linking themselves with universities have really interesting opportunities, I think, to develop startup research innovation. At NetExpo, what we do is we look at innovation, but we're specifically interested in the usages. So we're not necessarily looking at, we don't actually give a toss about how the technology itself works. What we want to look at are the usages. So it doesn't have to be high tech and really new glittering stuff. It can be totally low tech, as in this example in Ghana, where they used basically feature phones, although this is a BlackBerry, but they used feature phones as the key technology to understand how to identify counterfeit drugs. And the interesting thing here was not the technology, but the fact that they were able to coordinate and collaborate with 5 different major parties, including the government, in Ghana in order to coordinate and figure out counterfeit drugs in Ghana. So at NetExplo, we look at usages that are impacting society. That's what we're focused on. We try to understand today's trends as much as we think about the future. We're really focused on what's happening, try to figure out why people in garages around the world are doing what they're doing to do these startups. At the same time, we also know that a bunch of these things we're talking about may come out and become the next Twitter. Other ones may fizzle and sizzle and die. So let's get into it. So a little philosophy before. Limits and borders separate things. Separating allows us to differentiate. By differentiating, you enable identity. Think about when you're doing branding. There's no identity without differentiation. I'm not like them. They are the bad guys. We're the good guys. Every limit creates the desire to go beyond it. That's part of our human instinct, the wish to go on. We go beyond our limits to grow or renew ourselves. But if we go so far as to do away with the limits, doesn't that mean that we're changing the very nature of the things that we're observing? So we have 3 trends that we're looking at. And they're all about this notion of identity and borders. So the first is the emancipation of our biology and the border that we have previously put around this notion, the concept of biology. The second one is the emancipation of robots. And the third is the freedom and emancipation of our relationships. One of the things we like to look at NetExplo is the way technology is changing relationships, human interaction. So these are the 3 trends that we look at for this year. So let's get into it. So as Descartes said, the modern project is to make ourselves, as it were, the lords and masters of nature. Technology is penetrating and changing the nature of living matter. Biological identity is no longer a frontier. We can't be defined just by a biological term. Living matter is being shaped by the human will and by the introduction of technology. And this is where you get this Huxley concept, which he developed in 1957. Transhumanism stems from the convergence of these three things: biology, robotics, and AI. And the extraordinarily exciting thing is that we are on the verge of a huge breakout in these things. These things have been around for a long time. But right now, and for the next 5 years, AI and robotics is going to absolutely dramatically change the nature of how we approach biology in particular. So this first trend is biostretching, freeing ourselves of our organic constraints, this body that we live in, and much more. With technology, we're enhancing biology and the control that we have over and the transformation of living things. What we're seeing is a blurring of the line between biology and technology. Is it tech or is it bio? And I'm going to show you some examples of how that's happening. So let's get into it. I have 25 examples. I'm going to rush through them. They'll be listed at the end so you can catch up with them at the end and then explore them. So the first one's called Brain Print, Binghamton University. They asked some individuals to read some words being plugged in with their brains. The computer picked up the brain waves, what was happening in the brain when they read. And then when they saw and they would read the word out loud. But when they saw the word, the computer was able to identify the word that they were reading. So they had 100% accuracy on the brains that were being read, and they had 94% accuracy on the words that they were reading. It's impressive how you start to understand what's happening in our brain waves. This one is on the eyes. So now we're able to recognize the iris of somebody from 10 meters away. It used to be just a question of 10 or 15 centimeters. Now imagine how this is going to change the way we look at security. So from techno-health to biohacking, this is the democratization of medicine in some regards. Hoop out of Kazakhstan. So you put this little ring on your thumb, it pricks your finger all indelicately, and allows you to understand whether you have chlamydia, gonorrhea, or other sexually transmitted diseases. Sends it up into the cloud, and you get your results back, and then it tells you where you can go to get a treatment. Well, hopefully they keep that secure. Sniff phone out of Israel. This is really cool. You breathe into this apparatus, and through the breath that you spray, it's able to detect whether you have cancer, lung cancer in particular. And they're looking now to make it miniaturized into a smartphone. Microculus, this is out of Germany. With 1 milliliter of your blood, they're able to detect cancer in less than 1 hour. Sends it up to the cloud, they research it, bring you back and tell you whether you have cancer. Microculus. So this is really, you got your laboratory in a pocket. The augmented body, this notion of transhumanism that we talked about. So this one, we mentioned Lego a little while ago. I absolutely adore this. I'd like to spend 10 more minutes, but I can't. It's called the Eco-Creative Prosthetic System. This is a young guy, a professor or teacher in Colombia. And he looked at a kid who had a prosthetic, and it was this terribly antiquated, adult-like object on the end of his arm that he was teased about having. So he said, that's horrible. I'd like to change that. So in partnership with Lego, they allowed this kid to crowd a bunch of Lego pieces to make his arm into a toy and no longer have it as this prosthetic arm machine that adults were making. And as a result, his arm became everybody's arm because all the kids contributed their Lego to make his arm. Cool? My favorite. Ceroplex. So this is the first wire-brain machine interface, allowing a lady who is completely paraplegic to, just through her brain, to move a robot to do things that she would like to do. For example, I'd like to drink some Coca-Cola. Please tip this over and bring it to my lips so I can have some Coke. Think about the autonomy that's going to provide for her to be able to do that. Merging bio and tech. Is it fusing or is it confusing? Who am I? We were talking about that a little while ago. So now we're talking about DNA as a memory storage, as a memory chip. They're able to put 47 million words on a piece of DNA. So can you imagine a computer that's actually made of DNA? Tech or bio? Blue Brain project. This is a great collaboration that has now been able to simulate a neocortex with 37 million synapses and 30,000 neurons. So this is going to allow us to understand how our brain functions, what happens when we sleep, how do we remember things. Are you afraid or are you excited by these propositions? Where are we? We're excited? Yeah. Cool. All right, well, let's get more excited. Amino Labs out of MIT. Now, these guys, for 700 euros, you can buy a lab and make perfumes or grow bacteria or even grow your own beer. I know that would be appreciated in Bristol. So they're basically allowing people to democratize a research laboratory in your home. This is a well-researched example. It's available for purchase. There it is, little lab. This one is also interesting. For any of you have friends who are diabetic, I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I take my insulin every day, and for some of you, you might realize, and pharmaceutical companies should wake up about this, it's extremely expensive for our system. Here we have a company that, this guy has type 1 diabetes, and he said, this is so expensive, I want to make my own insulin. Why is it that we have to pay so much for it? Anyway, he basically is a biohacker, crowdfunded it. It's totally open source, so that everyone's going to be able to make their own insulin at home. Pharmaceutical companies need to wake up to the opportunities and the risks of trying to gouge pricing. So the second trend is stretching the machine, this robot idea, the emancipation of the robot, where technology sets itself free. So what happens when you mix a TV news show and an ad agency? I don't know, craziness on drugs? I don't know. You get el hueco tuitero. So this is, I think it was Havas who did it. What they did is they were sick and tired of these potholes that are existing in the streets that were never fixed by the government. So they put a little object in the bottom of the pothole. So every time a car went over, it automatically tweeted, hey, there's a pothole here, fix it, damn it! And the thing worked, and they actually took actions to fix the location where these potholes were existing. Don't you love that? Hueco tuitero. Michigan Micro Mode. This is miniaturization, which is obviously powering a lot of these things. This is a new computer. This is a computer. This is, in fact, the smallest computer that exists. Definition of a computer, something that captures, records, analyzes, stores, and transmits data. Bonus if it can store energy as well. This is how big this little computer is. That is a corner of a cent. Give it some size here. That is the little fly. That's it. That's the computer. Wow. Then I would be mistaken if I didn't talk about drones a little bit, because that's a lot of stuff. This is an example out of Singapore, where they are having flying waiters that shuttle the work. So watch out for the new waitering businesses, as you can now then send things from the bar straight to the table by drone. Every job is up for grabs. Yeah. Working on it. It's still work in progress, to be exact, but anyway. There are lots of drones ideas. So what is autonomy without intention? So you have this autonomy, but who's guiding it? What about this? Here's an idea. This is called the Random DARKNET Shopper. This is an art project in Switzerland, where they said, well, what about this? This is DARKNET. Let's order stuff. So they've done it automatically. To order stuff over the DARKNET, the dark web, using bitcoins, and so they just did randomly whatever they came around. So they purchased all these things which are available, whether it was ripped off items. Then they got all the deliveries sent to their location, of course, and these included, Fanta or Sprite. That's interesting. Then they also had, cigarettes, a pair of counterfeit shoes. And then, and keys, and then, of the house, ecstasy. Well, that's when the project had to be closed down. Anyway, so you had this idea of giving the freedom of robots to do whatever they want to do. who's controlling it. So the emancipation of robots. In Japan, they do a lot of tests, and it's very academic, and they've created a computer that's able to take a test and pass. It used to be, it now has achieved the average score of 53.8% over 5 subjects. Its goal is now to earn a place in University of Tech in Tokyo. I want to buy one of those for my son. Then self-teaching, right? So these robots, they have this freedom, and now can they learn? Can they learn? Well, here we have a project out of Oslo where this robot is 3D printed, and it learns how it's doing. So it figures out where it's screwing up, and then it tells itself what it needs to do in order to improve. What do I need to do to actually be able to walk? So it's understanding where it's failing, interpreting that, sending back the message to the machine to 3D print a new and improved version. In the same vein, out of UK and Switzerland, Cambridge University and ETH, this is the mother of all robots. What it does is it creates these little objects, then it observes how they're doing, and then through the observation figures out how I need to improve it. For now, it's very simple tasks that are being asked. But the notion of this Uber mother robot that's observing what it's creating and then improving its creations by itself without human intervention. So on the unstoppable conquest of events, can we enable robots to become better and better by themselves, without us? All right, every year we look, this is the third and last one, to look at how digital is impacting human interactions. Should we substitute technology for relationships? Stephen was talking this morning about the importance in communications, and I think you're going to see a few examples that are interesting. Are any of you on Tinder still? I know. Every time I ask that, they never say, "Oh, me." Yeah, of course I am. Yeah, I just do it for test, for work. It's clinical study. I mean, swipe left, right. I don't know. You know what that means, right? All right. So this was out of Canada. This chap. So TINDERBOX. Yeah, it's great, but it's a little bit laborious to keep on going in there saying yes, she's no. Yeah. So what he did is he created a system that allows him to explore automatically who he likes. So he goes in, says, yeah, she's nice, or whatever you're looking for. Yeah, nice. Then after that, the computer knows what you type, what your type is, and then afterwards goes back in, and then swipe yes, no, based on the way your algorithm sets what I like. So then here's what's cool about that. Once I've got my my lineup, if you will, then it goes in. And then it does the conversation for me. Automatically. If she says that, then I'll do that. And if she doesn't do this, then I'll go back to that. And you know what the crazy thing is? The guy got 5 dates out of it. Then he told them how he got it. Like, it wasn't me, it was my computer doing it for me. One of them actually thought that was okay, and they continued to date. Not bad. All right, out of Canada, I don't know why there's both these. Anyone lawyers? Friends who are lawyers? All right, if you don't know a lawyer, you need one. Tell them about this one, Beagle. This uses artificial intelligence that's able to analyze contracts by itself and make the small print, that shit that we don't understand, understandable for the normal layperson. And we're spending hundreds of pounds for the lawyer to tell us what the hell it's saying. So you just upload it into Beagle, and they'll tell you what to watch out for. Trolls. Ugh. So this is out of Stanford and Cornell in the States, an algorithm that within 5 messages sent is able to detect with 80% accuracy that is a troll about to emerge. So imitating relations, where can we use computers to do it for us, or help us anyway? This is a one for the ladies in particular, I suppose. So it's a small device that you just attach to your shoe. And so you set up and say, listen, I'm going to see somebody, but if I don't like him, I set my system to call somebody automatically. So I'm sitting beside, person doesn't so good, oh, and then I get a telephone call. Oh, wow, look, oh shit, my friend Julie just called, I gotta go. Anyway, quite neat. It can even order an Uber for you. All right, so stretching relationships, it's also stretching the economy. And so I'm not going to do a whole bit on the blockchain or Bitcoin because we know a lot about that. but it'd be difficult for me not to talk a little bit about that. So we're seeing the Uberization taking over so many industries. What is Uberization? This is my definition. Uberization is about taking out the layers and building in the trust. And when you think about this emancipation of technology, it's very interesting to see. Do we trust this free technology? It's this technology that has the freedom to be what it wants to be, or not? So this collaborative or gig economy is based on falling transaction costs, which is what we see with Uber. What's the brilliance behind it? Is it's taking out all the bullshit and making it so seamless for us. But it's not just happening in the world of taxis, it's happening in many other areas. And the challenge for companies is going to be, how is this going to impact my functioning, my organization? So the Uberization of work, here's an example. This is out of Hong Kong, so HR people. This is an ability to automate the recruitment process. And it's really quite cool because what you do is you have everything happening automatically. Would you like to work here? Send me your information. There's a vocal interview potential. So they upload the voice answers to certain questions so that you can just sit in your office and go through the ones that are pre-selected by artificial intelligence to be the best suited for what you're looking for. And basically you can do that instead of having to go through so much more manual labor and meeting everybody very quickly through distance, go through. And this is especially useful when you're looking for large volume tasks such as call centers. There's a bunch of these happening in Asia. If you want to find out more about that, there's a ton of these types of initiatives out in Asia. Talk push. And then Mitsukari, you want recruitment. Well, how do you know whether this person's the right fit? We were talking about that this morning. How do you know that they're going to be good for me? Well, if you could just figure out that they're a good fit for my culture, that would be cool, right? Well, that's difficult. So Mitsukari uses through opt-in. You look at your Facebook Connect, and that allows you to understand who you are better, because Facebook typically knows you better than you do. And then it's through the profiles that you set up, and the cultural definition that you have for your company, you can use with artificial intelligence, understanding whether that person is a better fit for you. Not just about competencies and skills, but in terms of how they are. Do they share? Are they happy? What kind of things do they have in their attitude that's going to make them a good person? All right, so last element is the blockchain. Bitcoin's cool, but blockchain's cooler. So there's going to be so many exciting things happening with blockchain. The one I'm going to talk to you about two examples that I think are interesting. This is BitProof out of France, which is notarizing contracts. Another example of this sort of opaque world, notary publics. We don't know what they're doing. This is through the blockchain and allowing you to notarize things, which is secure, much cheaper. So they've already notarized $2 million worth of contracts. That's BitProof. And Hernando Soto is a Peruvian economist. This is more meaningful. He said, developing countries have dead capital for want of an effective legal system of ownership. If we want to make progress in this world, we talked a little bit about that this morning with you, Rod, there's a lot of dead capital. If we could help these developing countries to turn their dead capital into living capital, capital that has use for them, such as the land or the houses that they might own, then we could really drive the economy and make some people more prosperous, or at least bring them out of their poor situation. So Bitland, out of Ghana, what they're doing is they're allowing through the blockchain to qualify in cadastres of real estate. Because one of the problems in Ghana is that we don't know who owns what. And the government hasn't bothered to do that. So if I can't prove that I own this house, I can't get a loan because I don't have any collateral. So the Bitland is the object, is the attempting to render all real estate, not dead capital, but live capital, that people can use. This is the list. I hope you've enjoyed the trail. Thanks for your time.